Okay, so let's talk about some Decepticons. Hello, welcome to Stories from the Toy Shelf. This is part 2 of my Transformers Masterpiece Season 1 display, Decepticons. But before we get into that, I just wanted to add in something I forgot from my last video. In case you're in case you're wondering, this is a blush brush. If you have a wife or a girlfriend who does makeup, this is something that is invaluable for dusting your toys. Perfect. Anyway, sorry. That aside, I just wanted to touch upon the trailer. I don't know if you caught it last time. So I just find it funny how for many Optimus Prime toys, the main selling point usually is a trailer. Like, I get so excited when they release something like this upcoming Studio Series 86 Optimus Prime with trailer. But when you actually get it, it's like, what the hell do you do with that big thing? Right? It's such a weird thing to display. I tried displaying it against the wall in its repair bay mode, but it just looked weird. But anyway, so yeah, here I have the trailer. I've used it as a tier, so to put Jazz and Prowl above, just to make it less crowded and add level to the display. So just something you could do. Anyway, so let's get back to the Decepticons. So let's start over here with the triple changer Blitzwing. So this guy is Ditka from X-Transbots, and if you know, you know. Ditka is infamous for being one of the worst third-party Transformers ever. It's so bad that it actually had trouble standing. The knees were so bad it couldn't handle the weight of the upper half of the body. But this is the second version, version 2 of Ditka, and I'm happy to say that he's perfectly fine. He can stand. He's pretty stable, so no problems on my end with this guy. But he's basically just a glorified placeholder because, as I mentioned in my previous videos, I'm a Fans Toys fanatic, and so I've been one of those people waiting for their version, Berserk, which was announced over almost 10 years ago, and I'm still waiting. But they just recently showed off a new version, which they say is going to be released early next year. So we'll see about that. Sorry, another thing you gotta know is I live right next door to an airport. So there are gonna be planes flying over. So it's something you get used to. Anyway, back to X-Transbots Ditka. So he's just a glorified placeholder until I get Fans Toys. And I know there's a really good version in Star Toys, but for me, that one is just a little bit too toon accurate. It just has no details. And I'm also a stickler for scale. And when it comes to the triple changers, I feel that Star Toys Blitzwing, I keep forgetting what it's called, it's just too big. He's taller than Astrotrain, and I always felt that Astrotrain was the bigger of the two, given that he's a space shuttle. But anyway, this guy scales pretty good with him, and based on the pictures, Berserk does too. So once Berserk comes out, this guy is gonna leave the collection. But anyway, until then, he's here. Next up, we have Runamuck. No, I think he's Runabout. Sorry, if I'm wrong, please correct me. And yes, I know what you're saying. This guy is not a Season 1 Decepticon, and neither is his brother, Runamuck. Anyway, so Runamuck and Runabout, the Battlechargers. So I just basically added them here because as a whole, you know, the Season 1 Decepticons didn't have much in terms of unique character designs. And so putting them together with the Autobots, they just seemed a bit outnumbered. So I just added on these guys, and a few more later on, you'll see them, just to even things out. I mean, they're close enough to Season 1. In fact, no, they came out Season 3. But anyway, they're here. So yeah, this is another masterpiece from X-Transbots, Fast and Fury. I think this is Fury. And not the best, but not the worst from X-Transbots. But they're the only masterpiece versions of these guys out so far. So if you want some masterpiece Battlechargers, this is it. What I do like about what X-Transbots did was they could have gone the easy route and basically designed one model, but actually, even if they share very similar engineering, and yes, their transformations have slight differences, they transform into two completely different cars, which is much appreciated. I mean, they were different cars in the original toy line, and so they're different cars here. And so yeah, X-Transbots Fast and Fury. Next up, we have these guys. Reflector. So before I get started on these guys, I wanted to give a shout out to a local seller here in the Philippines. His name is Victor Chua. He goes by Vishal Toys on Facebook. So this guy is single-handedly responsible for me saving a hell lot of money. So way back when these guys were released in I don't know, early 2000s, I wasn't a full-blown masterpiece collector. I was connected or referred to him when I realized that the local store that I was going to buy whatever masterpieces I had was overcharging me big time. So I connected with this guy on Facebook, and he hooked me up with stuff like Masterpiece Ratchet, Masterpiece Ironhide, and while I was not fully in yet, he kept telling me, hey, you should go get this guy. And at that time, Fans Toys wasn't a big company that they are right now. They were just one of the many third-party companies. And he sold me on this guy. He's not exactly what you would call a first-tier or even second-tier character. But yeah, I was convinced. I bought him. He also convinced me to get Forager, which led me to getting the rest of the Insecticons. And of course, Phoenix over there. But my point is, he got me to buy these guys when they were relatively cheap. Because now, even years later, there have been other reflectors done by other companies, but a lot of people, the general consensus, find that these guys are still your best option, and they are very expensive. They haven't been reissued at all. So thank you, Victor, for getting me these guys. Next up, Skywarp. I guess I'm gonna have to tackle all three: Skywarp, Starscream, and Thundercracker. So Thundercracker, if you don't know, is my favorite Transformer. Well, at least my favorite Decepticon. My favorite Transformer and Autobot is Sunstreaker. So both of them. But with regards to Thundercracker, he's my favorite purely on a nostalgic level. He was the very first Transformer, or to be technical about it, Thundercracker was my first Transformer, but I actually got the Diaclone Blue Jet, which eventually became Thundercracker. And aside from that, I just love his character, where he's not exactly convinced of the Decepticon cause. And IDW really expanded on that, where, he was a very honorable warrior and felt the Decepticons lost their way, and so he defected. Not to the Autobots, but at least he left the Decepticons. So Thundercracker. And then Skywarp, by relation, Skywarp and Starscream are just equally his favorites for me because, well, I refer to myself a lot as a seeker whore, meaning I'll buy any iteration of these three guys that I can get my hands on. And on a masterpiece scale, of course, you can imagine that my choice for masterpiece seeker is really important. So it started out with the first one, MPO3 Starscream. And yes, it wasn't a very accurate portrayal of Starscream, but I was hella excited. I remember getting off work early that day just to go to the store. And during that time, there was a major storm, but it didn't stop me. Got myself my MPO3 Starscream, brought it home. There was a power outage, a blackout. There was no electricity, but I didn't care. I lit up a candle and opened up my toy. That's how excited I was. So anyway, I went through the whole thing from the MPO3 version 1. I got the version 2, which is a slight improvement. And then when Masterpiece version 3 came out, I just felt it just didn't do it for me. Yes, the price was a bit up there, but in terms of design, it just did not do it for me. I felt it was too small. The proportions were off. So luckily, this third-party company, I believe it was Transform Element, no, Deformation Space, which technically supposedly is Transform Element. Anyway, they came up with this, Crimson Wing. And for me, this is my choice for a Masterpiece Seeker. I like the size. Some say they're a bit too big, but I think they're just right. The MP scale kind of sizes up with stuff like Ratchet and Trailbreaker, and I just felt that as Seekers, as Elite Warriors, they should be bigger. So anyway, I got Crimson Wing, and a lot of people complain about the complexity of the transformation, but I think that they're just perfectly fine. If you just follow the right procedure, I have no problem with it. And in case you're noticing why, well, I guess this is a reference to the cartoon where Thundercracker was hanging out with Reflector. They were doing some spy mission and he used the camera to take some pictures. One thing I forgot to mention about Reflector. So my wife, she's a professional photographer by trade. And so these guys, when I transformed them into a camera, were one of the very first toys or Transformers that she actually noticed. So yeah, plus points for them. But anyway, Skywarp, traditionally it's Starscream who holds the transformed Megatron, but I decided to go with Skywarp, one, because I like this pose for Starscream, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. There was that part in the cartoon where Skywarp ended up holding Megatron's gun, and I found it funny because he picked up Megatron's gun and it was like, what do I do with this? It's like he didn't know what to do. So he gets the gun for now. See, the problem with the Seekers in the display is, well, there are three. And so I always had a hard time figuring out how to display them because next to Megatron, you'd always have one on one side and two on the other. So I figured this way, propping up Starscream on right behind Megatron, ready to blast him in the back. But I mean, Starscream being the prima donna that he is, it would seem natural for his character to stand above the rest. And so it works, because then you get Starscream behind Megatron and a Seeker on each side. So yeah. Next up, we have Shockwave. So when it comes to Shockwave, there are two schools of thoughts on this guy. So you've got the cartoon version, the loyal servant of Megatron, who literally is a lapdog. Megatron told him to stay, and he stayed in Cybertron, and he waited for millions of years for him to come back. So this is the official Takara version, which sort of basically is the cartoon version. He is a little undersized for what he is, especially given my choice for the Crimson Wing from Deformation Space. But again, for me, this is the cartoon Shockwave. I got another one. I got the Masterpiece version from Cloud9, which some say is a ripoff of the Fans Toys version, but I chose Cloud9 over it because I felt he just looked a little bit better. But anyway, I tried putting Cloud9's version here on this display, but he just didn't fit. My display leans a little bit more towards the toon or cleaner aesthetic, but not completely toon. But anyway, so that Cloud9 version evokes the second version of Shockwave, which is the one from the comics, the one who logically came to the conclusion that he would make a better leader than Megatron and actually defeated him and for a time led the Decepticons. So that guy is in another display with another Megatron, which I'll probably get to later on. But anyway, so this is the cartoon version of Shockwave, Masterpiece version, and he's the one for this main display for me. Okay, so next up, Megatron. So this is the Masterpiece Megatron. Again, sorry, I can't recall their numbers, but this is the first release. And prior to this, I had my choice. There were a lot of Masterpiece versions of Megatron coming out, like X-Transbots had one, Make Toys had one, which looked really cool. But I settled on DX9's Mitron. It won me over because I thought the face just looked the closest to Megatron. And I was really blown away by the whole transformation of how his arms and his legs would compress to better fit the gun mode. So for the longest time, Mitron was my choice for Megatron. But he, of course, I mean, he's not the easiest. I mean, I know the other Megatrons have their own problems, but Mitron wasn't exactly the easiest either. But anyway, when Takara came out with their Masterpiece Megatron, I went with him. He is clearly the winner over all those ones that came before him. His transformation is just as crazy, but, you know, it's smooth. I'll give him that. It's a very smooth transformation, a lot easier than all the other options out there. And it's a huge improvement over the original Masterpiece Megatron, I think MPO2? Yeah, so that one was a nightmare. I had him. He could barely stand. He could barely hold up his fusion cannon. Well, I don't think I need to explain how bad that toy was. So having this guy, a major improvement over the original Masterpiece and all the other third parties, in my opinion. Next to him, we have Soundwave. Okay, so this is from Robot Paradise. This is Acoustic Wave. Robot Paradise is another way of saying Fans Toys, but I guess to get away from getting into any legal trouble, they released him under a fake name of Robot Paradise. But anyway, so this version of Soundwave is, I guess, again, broken record, is more toon accurate. The original Masterpiece version was probably one of the best Masterpiece toys that Takara ever came up with. And to be fair, still holds its own with a lot of Masterpiece displays. But I just preferred this slightly cleaner look. And again, because of my choice of the larger Seekers, the original Masterpiece Soundwave felt a little undersized, and I felt that he needed to be a little bit bigger. So yeah, I went with this guy, Acoustic Wave. He's got a whole history behind him, which I cover in my episode on Soundwave, so you can check it out. And perched on his shoulder is Buzzsaw. So I guess now I'll take care of the cassettes. So Packaged with Soundwave or Acoustic Wave was this guy, Frenzy, who is red, came packaged with Soundwave, and then the three other cassettes, the three other cassettes, Rumble, who is blue, Ravage, and Laserbeak came in their own separate add-on pack. So anyway, one of my biggest frustrations is that Buzzsaw always seems to be overlooked. Even in the Chug scale with the Siege line, we've had many opportunities to get a Buzzsaw, but we never got one. Well, a Buzzsaw is thankfully on the way with the new upcoming leader class Soundwave, but that's another story. Anyway, Buzzsaw was the biggest frustration for me because considering he was the original pack-in cassette with the original Soundwave, he seems to get no love. He's always overshadowed by this dude, Laserbeak. And to be fair, Laserbeak is a very competent warrior and spy, so, you know. But still, I was always particular towards Buzzsaw. So thankfully, Robot Paradise gave us a Buzzsaw, but he came in packed with other cassettes. So we got this guy, Overkill, who, well, he's not Season 1. I don't even think he came out in Season 3. But, well, he's a Decepticon, so I figured he fits here. So we got Overkill and Slugfest, and this drone, who, for the life of me, I know he came out in the original cartoon, but he always seems to be included in a lot of these cassette third-party companies. But anyway, so these four came in a pack. So thankfully, we finally got our Buzzsaw. But another one missing is Ratbat. So the original MP Ratbat, this is a KO, just so you know, because the original Ratbat, the original Masterpiece Ratbat came packed in with their recolor of the MP Soundwave into Sound Blaster, and I didn't feel the need to buy a whole new Soundwave, a black one, even if he did look cool, just for Ratbat. So I found this guy on eBay, and he fits the spot for Ratbat. There is a Robot Paradise version of this, an improved version, I think. It looks a lot better. And again, he's packed in with their version of Sound Blaster. So jury is still out if I will bite the bullet on that one, but I'm not that big of a Ratbat fan to probably spend another Soundwave just to get him. So this guy will do. And then we have the Insecticons. So again, Victor Chua, he convinced me to get this guy, Forager. And once I had him, I had to get Bombshell. I forget what his third-party name is. And finish it off with Shrapnel, which I found in Singapore. But my point is, thanks to Victor, again, I got these guys at their original cost, which wasn't so bad. And since then, there have been other MP Insecticons, but general consensus is these guys are still the best. And Fans Toys did reissue them years later at a crazy cost. I don't know if it's double, but it was extremely expensive. So I am very happy that I got these guys. One thing I will note about Forager was, okay, so he is, I think, the worst in terms of engineering. I mean, it's smart. The original toy would give us the arms made out of the insect legs, but these are fully solid arms, and the insect legs are actually tucked in the back, which is cool, but it's a hell of a transformation. And I actually ended up breaking, you see the wings and the metal clasps that go around the arms. I accidentally broke one of them. But thankfully, Fans Toys is an easy company to deal with. I was able to email them. They sent me new parts. Unfortunately, I didn't have any instructions on how to fix it, and so I ended up opening up his whole chest. I fixed it, but now the chest won't, get back together. I mean, it won't fall apart, but now the head is a bobblehead, but, whatever. Better than at least his wings are complete. So, yeah, I already talked about this guy. This is Fast, or the Battlecharger Run Amok. Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. And the last one is Thomas, Astrotrain by Fans Toys. So, while we were waiting for Berserk, years into our wait for Berserk, Fans Toys surprised everyone by announcing their Astrotrain. And I don't know about anyone else, but my reaction was, okay, so I guess we'll have to wait a long time for this guy. But they surprised us with releasing him pretty soon after his announcement. So he came out. I remember being really worried about this guy because I pre-ordered him with a local store here, and we're back. So I pre-ordered this guy from a local store here, And while we were waiting, like a few months later, the shop emailed all the people who pre-ordered and said, well, we have a shortage of supply. And so they wanted to give us a heads up that some of the pre-orders won't be able to be fulfilled. And I was really worried. But thankfully, I got mine. He came out in the middle of the pandemic. So usually during the pandemic, what I would do is we've got a lot of motorcycle riders here, companies, you book them online, and they pick up packages for you and deliver them to your house. But for this guy, I felt I wanted to pick him up personally in the store because, well, he costed a lot and I didn't want to risk losing him in transit. So back then in the pandemic, our country had this really stupid rule wherein wearing a mask in public wasn't enough. No. You had to wear a face shield, a plastic face shield. So I just remember it was like a big thing for me because I basically stayed home like most everybody. But for this guy, I made the trip to Green Hills, which is Toy Central here in the Philippines. Usually a trip to Green Hills would mean going around, checking out all the other stores, seeing what's there. But this time I was in and out. I had my face mask, I had my shield. I even had some protective eyewear. It was really crazy. You could barely see with all the fog building up. And went into the store, got my Astrotrain, and went out. It was like a special ops mission. It was funny. But anyway, yeah. So that is Thomas. He is pretty much the perfect Astrotrain, and hopefully we won't have to wait long for Berserk. Supposedly he's coming out next year, early next year, to finish up the third-party Triple Changers. Actually, no, we do need Octane. There have been some, but I haven't gotten any of them because I just felt that they weren't good enough. So hopefully Fans Toys will get to him after finishing up Berserk. And that concludes my Decepticon display, my Transformers Season 1 Masterpiece display. So Decepticons. And right below them, the Autobots, holding a prime spot in my room, right above our television, so I can see them every time I watch something. So what is your favorite Masterpiece Transformer from this Season 1? Is it a Decepticon, Autobot? What's your favorite company? Are you pure Takara, or do you have a favorite third-party company? Let me know in the comments below. All right, and that should be it. Thanks for watching. Until the next episode. See ya.